Hello. Okay, guys, we are continuing on with Harry Potter. Our last chapter we read was called The Forbidden Forest. Dun, dun, dun. We met the centaurs, which were really cool new creatures. Let's see what happened. Ooh, they found out that Voldemort didn't die. He is drinking unicorn blood to stay alive, and he's actually the one that's after the Sorcerer's Stone. So the kids think, Harry, Hermione, and Ron think that Snape is the one that is after the stone to try to give it, now they know, to Voldemort. Oh my gosh. So big things happened. Also, at the very end of the chapter, Harry found his invisibility cloak left on his bed for him with a note that said, let's see what it said, just in case, which is exciting and odd because he doesn't know who left it. So anyways, there's only 2 chapters left in the whole entire book. This is chapter 16. Ooh, through the trap door. There's that giant 3-headed dog that we've read about. So what I'm going to do is actually, this is one of the longest chapters in the book, but there's a good stopping point about halfway through. So I'm going to read the first half today, and then we're going to do the second half tomorrow. So yay, we're getting close to the end of the book, guys. We're going to finish it this week. All right, chapter 16, Through the Trap Door. In years to come, Harry would never quite remember how he had managed to get through his exams when he half expected Voldemort to come bursting through the door at any moment. Yet the days crept by, and there could be no doubt that Fluffy was still alive and well behind the locked door. It was sweltering hot, especially in the large classroom where they did their written papers. They had been given special new quills for the exams, which had been bewitched with an anti-cheating spell. They had practical exams as well. Professor Flitwick called them one by one into his class to see if they could make a pineapple tap dance across a desk. Professor McGonagall watched them turn a mouse into a snuff box. Points were given for how pretty the snuff box was, but taken away if it had whiskers. Snape made them all nervous, breathing down their necks while they tried to remember how to make a forgetfulness potion. Harry did the best he could, trying to ignore the stabbing pains in his forehead, which had been bothering him ever since his trip into the forest. Neville thought Harry had a bad case of the exam nerves because Harry couldn't sleep. But the truth was that Harry had kept being woken up by his old nightmare, except that now it was worse than ever because there was a hooded figure dripping blood in it. Maybe it was because they hadn't seen what Harry had seen in the forest, or because they didn't have a scar burning on their foreheads, but Ron and Hermione didn't seem to be as worried about the stone as Harry. The idea of Voldemort certainly scared them, but he didn't keep visiting them in dreams, and they were so busy with studying they didn't have much time to fret about what Snape or anyone else might be up to. Their very last exam was History of Magic. 1 hour of answering questions about batty old wizards who invented self-stirring cauldrons, and they'd be free. Free for a whole wonderful week until their exam results came out. When the ghost of Professor Binns told them to put down their quills and roll up their parchment, Harry couldn't help but cheering with the rest. "That was far easier than I thought it would be," said Hermione as they joined the crowds flocking out onto the sunny grounds. "I needn't have learned about the 1632 Werewolf Code of Conduct or the uprising of Elfric the Eager." Hermione always liked to go through their exam papers afterwards, but Ron said this made him feel ill, so they wandered down to the lake and flopped under a tree. The Weasley twins and Lee Jordan were tickling the tentacles of a giant squid, which was basking in the warm shallows. "No more studying," said Ron happily, stretching out in the grass. "You could look more cheerful, Harry. We've got a week before we find out how badly we've done, and there's no need to worry yet." Harry was rubbing his forehead. "I wish I knew what this means," he burst out angrily. "My scar keeps hurting. It happened before, but never as often as this." "Go to Madame Pomfrey," Hermione suggested. "I'm not ill," said Harry. "I think it's a warning. It means danger's coming." Ron couldn't get worked up. It was too hot. Harry, relax. Hermione's right. The stone's safe as long as Dumbledore's around. Anyway, we've never had any proof Snape found out how to get past Fluffy. He nearly had his leg ripped off once. He's not going to try it again in a hurry. And Neville will play Quidditch for England before Hagrid lets Dumbledore down. Harry nodded, but he couldn't shake off a lurking feeling that there was something he'd forgotten to do, something important. When he tried to explain this, Hermione said, "That's just the exams. I woke up last night and was halfway through my Transfiguration notes before I remembered that we'd already done it." Harry was quite sure the unsettling feeling didn't have anything to do with work, though. He watched an owl flutter towards the school across a bright blue sky, a note clamped in its mouth. Hagrid was the only one who ever sent him letters. Hagrid would never betray Dumbledore. Hagrid would never tell anyone how to get past Fluffy. Never. But Harry suddenly jumped to his feet. "Where are you going?" said Ron sleepily. "I've just thought of something," said Harry, and he turned white. "We've got to go and see Hagrid, now." "Why?" panted Hermione, hurrying to keep up. "Don't you think it's a bit odd," said Harry, scrambling up the grassy slope, "that what Hagrid wants more than anything else is a dragon, and a stranger turns up who just happens to have an egg in his pocket? How many people wander around with dragon eggs if it's against wizard law? Lucky they found Hagrid, don't you think? Why didn't I see it before?" "What are you talking about?" said Ron, but Harry, sprinting across the grounds towards the forest, didn't answer. Hagrid was sitting in an armchair outside the house. His trousers and sleeves were rolled up, and he was shelling peas into a large bowl. "Hello," he said, smiling. "Finished your exams? Got time for a drink?" "Yes, please," said Ron, but Harry cut him off. "No, we're in a hurry, Hagrid. I've got to ask you something. You know that night when you won Norbert? What did the stranger you were playing cards with look like?" "Don't know," Hagrid said casually. "He wouldn't take his cloak off." He saw the three of them look stunned and raised his eyebrows. "It's not that unusual. You get a lot of funny folk in the Hog's Head. That's the pub down in the village. Might have been a dragon dealer, mightn't he? I never saw his face. He kept his hood up." Harry sank down next to a bowl of peas. "What did you talk to him about, Hagrid? Did you mention Hogwarts at all?" "Might have come up," said Hagrid, frowning as he tried to remember. "Yeah, he asked what I did, and I told him I was a gamekeeper here. He asked a bit about the sort of creatures I look after, so I told him, and I said that I'd really wanted a dragon. And then, I can't remember too well, because he kept buying me drinks. Let's see, yeah, then he said he had the dragon egg, and we were playing cards for it if I wanted, but he had to be sure I could handle it. He didn't want it to go to any old home, so I told him after Fluffy, a dragon would be easy." "And did he seem interested in Fluffy?" Harry asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Well, yeah. How many three-headed dogs do you meet, even at Hogwarts? So I told him, Fluffy's a piece of cake if you know how to calm him down. Just play him a bit of music, and he'll go straight off to sleep." Hagrid suddenly looked horrified. "I shouldn't have told you that," he blurted out. "Forget I said it. Hey, where are you going?" Harry, Ron, and Hermione didn't speak to each other at all until they came to a halt at the entrance hall, which seemed very cold and gloomy after the grounds. "We've got to tell Dumbledore," said Harry. "Hagrid told that stranger how to get past Fluffy, and it was either Snape or Voldemort under the cloak. It must have been easy once he got Hagrid drunk. I suppose Dumbledore believes us. Firenze might back us up if Bane didn't stop him. Where's Dumbledore's office?" They looked around as if hoping to see a sign pointing them in the right direction. They had never been told where Dumbledore lived, nor did they know anyone who had been sent to see him. "We'll just have to," Harry began, but a voice suddenly rang across the hall. "What are you three doing inside?" It was Professor McGonagall carrying a large pile of books. "We want to see Professor Dumbledore," said Hermione, rather bravely, Harry and Ron thought. "See Professor Dumbledore?" Professor McGonagall repeated, as though it was a very fishy thing to want to do. Why? Harry swallowed. Now what? It's sort of a secret, he said, but he wished at once he had it because Professor McGonagall's nostrils flared. Professor Dumbledore left 10 minutes ago, she said coldly. He received an urgent owl from the Ministry of Magic and flew off to London at once. He's gone, said Harry frantically. Now? Professor Dumbledore is a very great wizard, Potter. He has many demands on his time, but this is important. Something you have to say is more important than the Ministry of Magic, Potter. Look, said Harry, throwing caution to the winds. Professor, it's about the Sorcerer's Stone. Whatever Professor McGonagall had expected, it wasn't that. The books she were carrying tumbled out of her arms, but she didn't pick them up. How do you know? She spluttered. Professor, I know that someone's going to try and steal the stone. I've got to talk to Professor Dumbledore. She eyed him with a mixture of shock and suspicion. Professor Dumbledore will be back tomorrow, she said finally. I don't know how you found out about the stone, but rest assured no one can possibly steal it. It's too well protected. But Professor Potter? I know what I am talking about, she said shortly. She bent down and gathered up the fallen books. I suggest you all go back outside and enjoy the sunshine. But they didn't. It's tonight, said Harry once he was sure Professor McGonagall was out of earshot. Snape's going to go through the trapdoor tonight. He's found out everything he needs, and now he's got Dumbledore out of the way. He sent that note. I bet the Ministry of Magic will get a real shock when Dumbledore turns up. But what can we... Hermione gasped. Harry and Ron wheeled around. Snape was standing there. Good afternoon, he said smoothly. They stared at him. You shouldn't be inside on a day like this, he said with an odd, twisted smile. Harry began without any idea of what he was going to say. You want to be more careful, said Snape. Hanging around like this, people will think you're up to something. And Gryffindor really can't afford to lose any more points, can it? Harry flushed. They turned to go outside, but Snape called them back. Be warned, Potter. Any more nighttime wanderings, and I will personally make sure you are expelled. Good day to you. He strode off in the direction of the staff room. Out on the stone steps, Harry turned to the others. Right. Here's what we're gotta do, he whispered urgently. One of us has to keep an eye on Snape. Wait outside the staff room and follow him if he leaves. Hermione, you'd better do that. Why me? It's obvious, said Ron. You can pretend to be waiting for Professor Flitwick, you know? He put on a high voice. Oh, Professor Flitwick, I was so worried. I think I got a question 14B wrong. Oh, shut up, said Hermione, but she agreed to go and watch out for Snape. We'd better stay outside on the third floor corridor, Harry told Ron. Come on. But that part of the plan didn't work. No sooner had they reached the door separating Fluffy from the rest of the school than Professor McGonagall turned up again, and this time she lost her temper. I suppose you think you're harder to get past than a pack of enchantments, she stormed. Enough of this nonsense. If I hear you've gone somewhere near here again, I'll take 50 points from Gryffindor. Yes, Weasley, from my own house. Harry and Ron went back to the common room. Harry had just said, at least Hermione is on Snape's tail, when the portrait of the fat lady swung open and Hermione came in. Oh, I'm sorry, Harry, she wailed. Snape came out and asked me what I was doing, so I said I was waiting for Flitwick, and Snape went to get him, and I only just got away. I don't know where Snape went. Well, that's it then, isn't it? Said Harry. The other two stared at him. He was pale, and his eyes were glittering. I'm going out of here tonight, and I'm going to try to get to the stone first. You're mad, said Ron. You can't, said Hermione. After what McGonagall and Snape have said, you'll be expelled. So what? Harry shouted. "Don't you understand? If Snape gets a hold of the stone, Voldemort's coming back. Haven't you heard what it was like when he was trying to take over? There won't be any Hogwarts to get expelled from. He'll flatten it or turn it into a school for the dark arts. Losing points doesn't matter anymore, can't you see? Do you think he'll leave you and your families alone if Gryffindor wins the House Cup? If I get caught before I can get to the stone, well, I'll have to go back to the Dursleys and wait for Voldemort to find me there. It's only dying a bit later than I would have because I'm never going to go over to the dark side. I'm going through that trapdoor tonight, and nothing you two say is going to stop me. Voldemort killed my parents, remember?" He glared at them. "You're right, Harry," said Hermione in a small voice. "I'll use the invisibility cloak," said Harry. "It's just lucky I got it back." "Will it cover all three of us?" said Ron. All three of us? Oh, come off it. You don't think we're going to let you go alone?" "Of course not," said Hermione briskly. "How do you think you're going to get the stone without us? I'd better go and look through my books. There might be something useful. But if we get caught, you two will be expelled too." "Not if I can help it," said Hermione grimly. "Flitwick told me in secret that I got 112% on exam. They're not throwing me out after that." And that is the break in the chapter, guys. So they are going to try to steal the stone before Snape or Voldemort does. So tomorrow we're going to pick up and continue reading through the trapdoor. Thanks, guys.